embezzlement, bribery, extremism charges. The bottom line is I need you to tell us who Navalny is, because I don't know who he is from a hole in the wall. I don't trust any government out there anywhere, period. Not Putin, not Zelensky, not Trudeau, not Biden. So I don't know if Navalny's a bad dude, a bad player, a CIA asset like many people say he is. All that I know is I know that Biden is bad. And so when Biden is coming out milking this for political profit, I say, where were you, A, when Gonzalo Lira suffered a very similar fate, and B, dude, did the CIA do this so that you can then use it as a pretext to force through the House that border bill turned a foreign aid bill that other than the bipartisan rhinos in the Senate liked, nobody likes? It's very convenient. There could be a hush hush here.
It was completely fake by the West. Navalny never had more than 2% support at his peak in Russia. There was no mass support for Navalny. He was not a mass leader. Nobody cared about him in Russia. Putin didn't care about him until he showed up as a Yale Global Fellow. And then he was like, what's going on here? What are they trying to use this fellow for? What's he up to? His campaign manager was caught on tape trying to pitch the West, hey, give us $20 million and we'll overthrow the government for you. Now, what happened is he had always been involved in embezzlement schemes. He, his brother, other people. But most of those schemes were not criminally prosecuted very aggressively. What happened, in fact, but after he shows up as a Yale fellow, all of a sudden the Russian government has a little more interest in him, and they do prosecute him for those old embezzlement schemes. I mean, he had like a half dozen ones. Every time he turned around, he was involved in some new embezzlement scheme. But that's how you made money in Russia during that time frame. The grifting was a way of life. It was a professional occupational path. Navalny called it just good entrepreneurial work. That's how they defined it there in Russia. It's kind of like what the Africans learned from colonial government, that bribery was just a way of, that's what good government equaled, because they witnessed it in live time. So, but he was put on probation, suspended sentences, but he kept getting into trouble over and over again. Now, the other thing he did is he used his new YouTube channel. So he was one of the first people in Russia to, for being an online blogger, also one of the first people to use YouTube in a particularly effective manner.
Apparently, he had 6 million followers at one point on his channel.
Oh, exactly. Boosted big. Now, part of that was because he was a Western-backed guy. The West was backing him to support him with this idea that he would be the next president. They really convinced themselves. I think some were the smarter ones knew they were lying. Your Kissingers of the world knew this guy was an unpopular version of Lyndon LaRouche. But the delusional ones convinced themselves that, it's like in Taylor of Panama, where the general says, gentlemen, there's a star missing from our flag. Talking about, waging war on Panama to add star number 51. There are some people like that in the West that really convinced your Condoleezza Rices of the world, some others, convinced themselves he was this deeply popular leader. He never had any popularity ever in Russia. But he had global, a lot of the 6 million weren't Russians. But what he did a good job of was, in his grifter space, he became a guy who you could pay him to rat out your enemies. So if you had an enemy within the government or an enemy within the Russian economic structure, you would go to Navalny, feed him a bunch of dirt about your opponent, and rat him out. Now, he got into trouble for this because he did no due diligence on any investigation he reported. So he got successfully sued for defamation, for libel, for other conspiracies, because he couldn't back up what he claimed. But he developed this sort of gadfly, ne'er-do-well, protest outsider challenger within, particularly the younger population within Russia that was big in social media, kind of liked him. But that was the extent of it. He had no popular appeal beyond it. And then once he was like doing pro-BLM stuff, pro-gay marriage stuff, pro-Ukraine stuff, he lost all appeal entirely. So, but the West convinced themselves that they could stage a coup, that they would overthrow Putin, and they would put Navalny in. And so he goes through this very peculiar thing where he's on a plane and supposedly he's poisoned. And so he has to go to Germany to get treatment.
Poisoned with, like they said, Soviet era radioactive material.
Yeah, they keep saying it's this incredibly powerful poison that manages to never kill anyone. Right. So it's like if Putin wanted you dead, yeah, you'd be dead.
Well, we saw it with Poroshenko. I mean, it'll happen if Putin wants it.
Oh yeah, of course. So Putin Putin only cared about this guy to the degree he was a nuisance tied to the West that the West wanted to utilize him for. Beyond that, he was very insignificant in Putin's world, and in the ordinary Russian could care less about him. But so he uses this to generate lots of coverage in the West. He goes to Germany. Oh my God, the Putin tried to kill him. He's the next great leader. And remember, this is when all the West media was saying Putin's about to be overthrown. Has health problems. But, Ukraine is a disaster. So they really had convinced themselves. Some people in the West, like Taylor of Panama, really convinced themselves Navalny was the next president of Russia. There was zero chance of that ever occurring. Zero. So he stages his little event. They claim that Putin poisoned him. But they won't allow an independent. Russia's like, let's do an independent investigation. Let's have multiple countries involved and see what happened. Oh no, Germany. We can't do that, Germany. Because it's all fake. So dude goes back to Russia now, but of course, because he fled to Germany and staged this whole nonsense, he's violated terms of parole or something. Yeah, again, this guy was given like 3 suspended sentences. Right? I mean, he got convicted again and again and again and again for multiple crimes. The Western excuse was always, oh, this is politically motivated, etc. They couldn't factually disprove any of the claims. It was quite clear the guy did commit the bribery and embezzlement. Again, his defense is, hey, everybody was doing it in Russia. That's how you made your money. But so he goes back, and now because they were clearly Putin sees they're trying to use Navalny to stage a coup, he's like, okay, maybe it's time that our Russian justice system apply a little bit of old school justice. And so they sentence him to prison.
So let me stop you there. Why does he go back? Does he go back thinking that he actually stands a political chance of...
Either the West, he's convinced one, he's doing his job. This is whose new line of money is. He was already in trouble because he had already grifted a bunch of money from his parties in Russia that apparently stole a lot of money from his donors and contributors. Again, that's what the guy did. That's who he was. He was, a grifter on steroids. Not a half bad one, But the new deal with the West was he needed to go back so they could stage a coup. I don't know whether he ever really believed. He might have been delusional enough to think he was the next president of Russia. You got the CIA behind you. You got the MI6 behind you. You got German intelligence behind you. They're telling you you're going to be a hero. CNN saying you're going to be the next thing. Da, da, da. So maybe he really believed it. And that's where, Putin was just a reminder to everybody, well, maybe it's time for a little Russian justice. See how you like those winters in Siberia. Next time you think the CIA is going to run our country. And so that's what happened. While he was in jail, he got his health deteriorated. Now, I find the timing of his death doesn't benefit Russia. The timing of his death benefits the West. That's where a lot of people there was one person who said, I didn't think the CIA took him out until Biden made a big deal about it. Taken out.
Robert, I was watching Biden's presser and the thought hadn't entered my head and I felt stupid. But then he's like, now's the time. Literally, people, history is watching. And now let me milk it.
They can't get a vote. They can't get Ukrainian money passed. They can't get the Patriot Act restored. And first they say Putin's got space nukes. He's going to put nukes up in space. That was their first line of excuse. And now the new one is, oh, look, he killed the great Navalny, the great civil rights leader. This is literally our man in Havana, Taylor of Panama, written to life. And the number of people who buy it is extraordinary. Amnesty International got in trouble last year when they were promoting him. And people are like, well, let me give you some of Navalny's quotes over the years. It's him referring to certain groups as cockroaches who need to be stepped on. And Amnesty was like, we missed that one part of the memorandum. The guy's a complete fake. He makes us look like such a joke to the Russian audience. It's like, we never liked, this would literally be like saying Lyndon LaRouche was the most popular man in America and been stolen his ability to be president. And Americans would be like, what in the heck are you talking about?